What is a personality pattern? Every wound has a predominant characteristic, such as shame, rejection, low self-esteem, unsafety, whatever. They all come laced with strong primal feelings of fear, grief, and anger in different, you know, proportions, different mixes. These particular characteristics drip feed into our lives and find circumstances in which they can be played out. For example, someone with a shame characteristic can find opportunities in any relationship with partners, bosses, friends, where they feel inferior. And someone whose wound has a rejection characteristic will easily find events in the rough and tumble of everyday life to trigger a feeling of rejection. Most people in the group personality are totally unaware of their wound and any patterns they have resulting from it. They don't even know that there is such a thing as the wound. There is a very clear reason for this. The personality is built on denying the wound. That is its strategy to protect you from the wound. So as long as someone is fully identified with their personality, there is no way they can become conscious of the wound. Consequently, they live in a kind of sleepwalking denial, as if the wound never happened and as if it wasn't a huge factor influencing their lives. But this unconscious denial does not protect them from the outcome of the wound, the suffering caused by their patterns, beliefs, emotions. These outcomes create the kind of background unhappiness which they do not know the cause of. They rationalize this unhappiness by taking on a belief that it is just a normal part of being human. Jung said, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. People deal with the unhappiness by distracting themselves from it with technology, exercise, pornography, ambition, etc. But distraction is only a temporary fix. It doesn't make the unhappiness go away. It only postpones it. Our shadow follows us wherever we go, whatever we do. This is the trap of the unconscious man, what Gurdjieff called the automaton. Gurdjieff said, without self-knowledge, without understanding the working and functions of his machine, man can never be free. He cannot govern himself and he will always remain a slave. But powerful events like breakdowns, depressions, illnesses, or accidents can sometimes knock us out of the protection that our personalities usually provide and force us to touch the wound. If this happens to someone in whom the yearning is latent, a journey of inquiry can begin in which an awareness of the wound and its outcomes can be exposed. Then you begin to see this workings and functionings of your machine, and you have enough choiceless awareness to recognize your particular patterns. Sometimes the root of the pattern gets a direct hit. It's like stepping on a landmine. Rather than the pattern being hidden in the subconscious, drip feeding at a low level into your life, the pattern is blown open, it gets fully activated. It rises up and manifests very strongly. This happens in both the psychology and the body. The feeling at the heart of the pattern is finally exposed, and physical symptoms which the pattern caused become very strong. All you can do is keep watching and let the awareness do its job. This is what is meant by the term conscious suffering. It means that you don't reject or distract from the suffering, because you know it is the history of the wound wanting to come up so it can heal. Of course, this willingness does not mean that facing the pattern is easy. In this stage, there is chaos in the system as it is flooded with the story of the wound. Your energy will be very low as the body-mind is dealing with such heavy emotions. The challenge is to stay centered and not get pulled into the drama of the pattern that is releasing, not to get freaked out by the physical symptoms or the psychological states. If you get pulled into the drama and get identified again with your story, the process is derailed, the opportunity is missed. Eventually, you will start to feel better as the pattern sinks into the background and you return to your normal ongoing state. You've got through the painful episode, but the opportunity it offered to go beyond it has been missed. It will come up again, and maybe next time you'll be ready to use it. If you have readiness and keep watching, the deeply buried feeling at the heart of the pattern can be exposed and released. And that is the beginning of the pattern collapsing. One day, like a planet imploding, the forces that kept it in place would disappear. There is nothing to keep it in existence. The pattern took a lot of energy to keep it going. You were the host and it fed off your energy. When the pattern goes, that energy is freed up and returns to you. Psychologically, you will have a lot more space. The unhappiness caused by it has gone, and the primal joy of the natural state is able to shine through. Well, I guess, like I say, there can be strong events, specific events that can give you the challenge to see it, or maybe they're around in everyday life, and it's just about your choiceless awareness becoming strong enough to catch what before was just something you took for granted and you couldn't see. So it's really a kind of sharpening of the awareness, I think. So it's like waking from a sleep. You see things that before you weren't able to be aware of. So it's like getting X-ray vision. And it's really a kind of focusing, a sharpening of your awareness that allows it, I would say. And that is a product of readiness and willingness to see it. It's like all those things come together. The blind spots are the gold, finding them. Because then, that's what keep the patterns in place. And all it takes in the end is willingness, and then it comes. Then, the right time, you'll see what you need to see. And you won't see it all, but you'll see the next bit that you're able to see. And it is the climate of willingness that we kind of foster here that kind of creates that opportunity, partly, I think. It's like meeting life halfway. It's like it's all there for you to see. If you kind of look towards it and step towards it, it's going to come even more, It's like a two-way thing, I think. I mean, it's all life. We're life, and what's happening to us is life. But there's a sort of something that happens alchemically when, you get in tune with the process of growth, I guess you could call it. I've found that there's a sort of front face of it, which maybe emotionally is anxiety, and there'll be a trigger for that in your daily life, and that's something to become aware of. When you can trace that back to the wound, it goes deeper, because the current trigger of it is just the current trigger. That's not really the point. You could get caught up on, say somebody really makes you angry or something, or fearful. You could get caught up on that trigger and that person and that circumstance. And it's good to understand what happened. But going back one step, you see, oh, well, from my side, I already had a disposition in which that fear could come up. And this person is just the current trigger of it. So as soon as you make that link back to the root of the wound, you're just going so much deeper and towards healing. It just takes you deeper to make that step. So this is part of reading and understanding your particular personality and wound. And primal beliefs are a big part of that, because they're kind of like the underpinning of it that keep it all in place. So instead of going along with the belief, being identified with it means you can't see it, you just live it. But just that gap again of awareness of like, well, actually, it's a belief, it's not real outside of that belief. So catching or being able to see one's primal beliefs is a big part of this. There's the patterns, there's the primal beliefs, there's particular emotions that you have, and it's about gradually getting a picture, like a scan of the whole thing. And like the more the bits are sort of filled in, the less you can be pulled back into it, because you know too much to be fooled again. So every time you see more, whether it's in any of those areas, it's all part of it happening, and it's all good. Even though what you're seeing might be painful, the belief wants to tell you that you are your beliefs, and that's all there is, and the beliefs are true. But there's a kind of reality outside of those beliefs. And that is life beyond personality. That's why it's called that. Because outside of your personality, they don't exert that force on you. And then you're free of them. And then you're free to be who you really are. Our own setup feels so terrible and so personal. But from the outside, with a dispassionate view, it is just an outcome of circumstances. One thing that can help in seeing your particular setup is to understand, one thing that brings about more distance is to understand that it is just circumstance. It's a series of things coming together that produce the result. It's cause and effect. It's not real. It's not real. The reality it's trying to sell you is not true, but it seems like it's true. I mean, there's a great kind of let go that can happen where it's like surrender. It's like, okay, what have I got to learn? What have I got to see? That's the attitude. And as you can see from my talk, that's the exact opposite of what personality's stance is, which is basically personality awareness. I don't want to look at that. And that's not even conscious. It's just massive blind spot for so much. And this is turning everything 180 degrees, where you turn to look and find everything that the personality is trying to keep from you. And again, have to say, this thing called personality is not the bogeyman. It's something that developed to help protect us at that time. Again, it's just circumstance. It's cause and effect. It's the way life protected us when it was the best we had. But it kind of got stuck. Yeah. And became its own prison in the end. When you look at how we all start out, something comes in and overshadows that. It's a bit like when we look at brainwashing in cults or anywhere, and it's like we're sort of brainwashed into believing something, and we're so invested in it that it becomes sort of, it's our truth. It's true for us. It's not true outside of that system, but it can't not be true. It sort of goes beyond a point where so it's almost like a miracle when waking up is like realizing, oh, that's not true. And it's like waking up from being brainwashed all your life. Yeah, and it's difficult because everybody is aligning with it. And, it's, if you think of, it's like 1984, enough people start living according to this regime and you don't. It's like you appear like the mad one, but it's hard because the current against you is so strong. that it takes enormous resilience and willingness, and I think that's why, sometimes this happens when people are in a crisis, because only in a crisis is the personality kind of not in control enough for the crack to open and you to see it. That's certainly what happened with the breakdown with me.
Yeah.
The mind could easily believe that, oh yeah, once you see through it, once you've seen through the lot, the whole thing falls apart, and therefore it doesn't manifest anymore. I think that is part of the almost like an absolutist kind of way of thinking, where it's all finished with, it doesn't exist, blah blah blah, and it doesn't take into account the relative. And I was going to say karma, but it's such a loaded word, so I can't say that. Outcomes, reverberations, memories in the body mind. This is such a balanced, wide view, all-encompassing view of it, how it is. It's not closed down. It doesn't in any way reject the relative. And I feel like if ever that happens, you're rejecting the relative. This whole thing goes off into a kind of weird absolutist, and it becomes untrue. Yeah, you can see through the relative, if that's the right way of putting it. You can know that it's the absolute in the relative form, but that doesn't mean you don't acknowledge it. The playing out of it, and more than that, the playing out of it is it. That's the beauty of it. Yeah, the beautiful illusion, and it encompasses that the illusion of the relative, and that we are this person, and it's beautiful because that's an expression of it. Why would we fight against that? Why would absolutists fight against that? Well, so you become dualistic. As soon as you do that, you become dualistic. God forbid that we become dualistic. I just don't use that term unless I'm kind of making a joke out of it, because it has become such a silly thing, I think. Yeah, my experience is that you words, you do the work, you know what I mean by that. You see what you have to see, and then the natural state is revealed, because it's resting there behind these blocks, these beliefs, these identifications. So it's a very organic way of, it's just about revealing them. Yeah. It is a funny thing, isn't it? Spirituality often becomes chasing of peace or wisdom or no selfness or something. It becomes the focus of attention is on these sort of outcomes, rather than their outcomes when that identification falls away. Even if you are engaged in seeing through your personality, you're not focused on, and soon I'm going to be able to have this or that. You're doing what you've got to do and seeing what you've got to see, and you let the rest take care of itself. Like the top level, we have all these manifestations of our personality, everyday life, emotions, moods, beliefs, all of that. But jump down to the root of it. It all comes down to the first time we felt separate, and that's what the personality grew from. if you remember, I'll put it like that. It's quite funny. If you remember when you were in the natural state, you were connected. You didn't feel separate, but you also had relationships with your parents and love, hopefully, before things went wrong. Anyway, so there was no, there was no sense of separation. There was the appearance of separation because mummy and daddy are over there and I'm here, I guess. But there was no part of you that divided it up. It was all manifestation, wasn't it? But after the wound, you're thrown out the Garden of Eden. That's what separate. That's what we mean by the separation. That we're not safe because we had an experience. Well, maybe many, but it started with one of unsafety. We're not safe here. And before that, we didn't even know what unsafety was. We didn't know what suffering was. It wasn't in our, we could hardly speak then, but I was going to say vocabulary, it wasn't in our emotional vocabulary, our feeling. So it's such a shock to the system. And that's the imprint of the wound. And then on top of that, layer upon layer of how, the ramifications, the outcomes of it, building this thing. And then 30, 40, 50 years later or whatever, you start to see through this thing that you were so aligned with.